Today on 100 Yards, we welcome in another legend. Born in the year of 1954 in Monroe, Louisiana, where he attended Richwood High School and won a state championship in 1972. And from there, he would move on to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., to continue his high school scholastic career, where he played for Western High School and won the Inner City Championship, a two-time All-American in high school. He chose to go on to college at Grambling State University, where he would become a two-time All-American, a two-time All-Conference player, and the Conference Player of the Year. He was drafted in the first round by the Washington Bullets and would later become a member of the 1978 World Championship team. He would progress and move on to win an Italian championship and also a European championship. And going on in his post-playing career, he would become a scout for several NBA teams. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 100 Yards, the legendary Larry Wright.
Good evening.
How you doing today, Mr.
I'm doing good, man.
Yes, sir. Before we get started, I'd like to say, if you liked the video today, please come in and share. We surely appreciate it here at 100 Yards Football. I'm your host, Vincent Turner, and special thanks to our producer today, Mr. Logan Landers. I would like to bring our guest back up. I'm going to say it very shortly. He's a basketball legend in the state of Louisiana from Grambling State University. He has an NBA championship. It's a lot of people can't say that with the Washington Bullets in 1978. The legend himself, Mr. Larry Wright. How you doing today, sir? And welcome to 100 Yards of Football.
Yes, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. You know, born in Monroe, Louisiana, family of 9, 7 boys, 2 girls.
Yes, sir.
And only my mother, not a father in the house anywhere. And, you know,
Yes,
most people have a hero. And I happen to have a shero, my mother. She made sure that we went to school and did everything we were supposed to do in terms of educational values. I went to elementary school at Robinson Elementary, Swayze Elementary. Then I went to Richwood Junior High, on to Richwood High School, where I met the legendary Herschel West. A lot of people don't know a lot about Mr. Herschel West, but he was drafted by the NBA back when there wasn't a lot of Afro-Americans playing in the NBA. So when I met Mr. West, I saw him playing basketball with us in practice all the time. And I just assumed this guy had played in the NBA. And he told me his story. And I think he took to me. He saw me playing, and I think his NBA dream didn't come true, but it became true through me. And he just taught me everything he knew about the game. And I fell in love with the game. And he was a Grambling All-American along with the great Willis Reed. And I just wanted to be just like Herschel West. And I took that upon myself. When I left high school, I could have gone to college anywhere I wanted to go. But because of what Herschel West did for me, I wanted to follow his footsteps, and I ended up going to Grambling State University.
Now I have a question for you. Well, I have a comment. I know Mr. West was real a mentor in your life, but he said some things about you that I want everybody to know out there in the basketball world. He said this about Larry Wright, and Coach West said this about you, Mr. Wright. He said of all the players he coached, there were several things he liked about you. He said that you was a competitive, A+, dedication to the game, A+. You was a winner, A+, and most of all, you was a fighter, A+.
Well, I'm glad to hear that from you today because Mr. West is gone on. He passed away a couple of months ago, and we never had that conversation. But it sounds just like him through you because those traits that you just mentioned of myself, I think they was right on time because I never liked to lose. I wanted to win every ball game. I competed all the time. And my mother used to get on me sometime about it. She used to tell me you're going to lose sometime. But I said, Mr. West said that if you do the right thing, you're supposed to win every ball game. And I simply felt that way.
Then another thing, I'm going to tell you how good. And back then, I was in my teens. I was about 14, 15 years old. And I'm saying you came along in an era where there was some serious smoke. You was a parade All-American, Mr. Wright. And today I'm going to give you your flowers. And you was a parade All-American with the likes of Bo Ellis.
Yes.
Moses Malone, Ernie Grunfield, Wesley Cox out of Louisville, Richard Washington out of UCLA, Adrian Bentley out of Notre Dame, T.R. Dunn out of Alabama, Ernie Kent out of Oregon, Kent Benson out of Indiana. Man, you was a bad man, as we say down south.
Well, I tell you what, that was a super team. And a lot of people to this day doesn't realize Parade Magazine All-American team. I mean, when you made that team, you were among the best of the best in high school. And those guys that you just named, those guys could flat out play. And for me to be on the same team, even though it was years ago, is something that I never forget, to be on the same team with those guys you just mentioned.
Now, talk about some guys I'm going to throw out there that was very inspirational in you moving up in the career ladder. Mackie Freeze, Robert Piper, Fred Hobby, and then most of all, Ernie Ladd.
Well, nobody, you just mentioned some guys. I don't know if I had not met these guys, if I would have been able to go to the NBA, go to Europe, and that type thing, because it was a situation in my life where the state of Louisiana had ruled me ineligible to play in the state of Louisiana for a half semester. So rather than play the half semester in Louisiana, I chose to go to Washington, D.C. But I did not have the things that I needed to go. And a big guy named Ernie Ladd stepped in. He stepped in and he financed me to Washington, D.C. He called Mr. Piper, who was a coach in Washington, D.C., found me a place to stay. Mr. Piper was just like a father to me. The great Mackie Freeze was a football coach, but he won 66 football games in a row. He always gave me the confidence to do what I needed to do. And when I asked them if I should go to Washington, D.C., they say, why not? Say, you have all the skills and the talent. And say, go up to Washington, D.C. and show them the type basketball we play in Louisiana. All those guys, a great Fred Hobby, who coached the legendary Herschel West, who coached the legendary Willis Reed. Unreal. Taught you all the fundamentals of the game. And when Coach Hobby finished with you, you was ready to play basketball for anybody.
Okay, Mr. Wright. Our producer today, Mr. Logan Landers, is really excited about your story. He'd like to ask you a question today here on 100 Yards Football. Mr. Logan Landers.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Turner, for bringing me up. So, Mr. Wright, I'm curious about this, and I know we're going through your journey right now, and I know Vincent will touch on it eventually, but I'm curious about what made you want to get into coaching in your career. After having, like I said, a storied career playing on the court, what made you want to step onto the sidelines and go back to Grambling, be an assistant for a couple seasons, then be a long-tenured coach? So what was your decision process in doing that?
My process was I met the legendary Herschel West, and I saw him play the game. and he had all the fundamentals of the game that you needed to be a good basketball player. And he taught me everything that he knew about the game. And once I finished playing for him, I went to Mr. Piper, who also played for Grambling. Fundamentals was first. Education was first. And I wanted to be just like those guys. So after my high school playing days, I wanted to honor the legendary Herschel West and Robert Piper. I wanted to follow their footsteps. So I went to Grambling to play for the guy that coached them, the legendary Fred Hoppy, who was also a Louisiana Hall of Famer, college Hall of Famer, won almost 700 ball games. And one thing he made sure happened with you, when your playing days were over, that you had something to fall back on. He made sure that we all received an education at D.O. Grambling, Grambling State University.
Yes, sir. Mr. Turner, back to you.
Mr. Wright, I want you to go back. Let's talk about the 1975-76 Grambling State basketball team that won the SWAC. Just comment on the teammates you had on that team: Joe Jones, Larry Wilson, Robert Wade, Willie Simmons. Talk about that right there and take us through the journey there and win that championship with all those great individuals.
Right, I tell you now, you mentioned that team, and as history as I can remember, we wasn't supposed to win it because you had the great Eugene Short from Jackson State, who was a lottery pick. You had his brother Purvis Short, who was a lottery pick. So we wasn't supposed to win that championship. But you mentioned a Joe Jones, you mentioned a Terry Sykes, a Larry Wilson, a Willie Simmons, a Herb Collins. Listen, we wasn't as talented as the Jackson State and the Alcorn and the Mississippi Valley. But as I mentioned him earlier, the great Fred Hoppy, he was as good as any coach, in my opinion, to coach college basketball. And I remember him telling us, now we don't supposed to win this SWAC tournament championship, but that's what they say. He say, if you all love the old Grambling, if you're willing to put the effort in, he said, we should walk out of here as SWAC tournament champion. And I tell you, we end up playing Mississippi Valley, Jackson State, and Alcorn back to back to back. And we were able to beat all of them in the SWAC tournament. Grambling hadn't won a SWAC tournament championship. And I'm still trying to figure out, when I go to see Grambling game, why they don't have that banner hanging up in the Fred Hoppy Assembly Center, because it's what Fred Hoppy would want that team recognized, because we were the underdogs and we were able to win the SWAC tournament championship.
After your great career at Grambling, after you won that championship, you went into the NBA draft as a junior. And when I look at that 76 NBA draft, I didn't realize how greatness you were, because using that draft with John Lucas out of the University of Maryland, Scott May out of Indiana. I'm going to bring his name up again. Richard Washington out of UCLA, Leon Douglas out of Alabama, Adrian Dantley out of Notre Dame, Quinn Buckner out of Indiana, Mitch Kupchak out of North Carolina. Man, that's what you call some serious company. Talk about you getting drafted in the NBA with all those great players. And let me say this to the people out there in Grambling. First round.
Well, I tell you, it was quite an honor. And, you know, when you watch these guys on TV in college, and then all of a sudden, you are in the same draft with these guys, and you're from Grambling State University, small college. People say, where this guy come from? But I remember every time we played against a major university, I made sure that I let them know that I belong. Like Coach Harvey always said to us, if you master the fundamentals of a game, then you can play with anybody. And, being drafted the same year with those great guys, Kupchak and I end up winning the championship on that same Washington Bullets team. It just let me know if you put in the hard work, the dedication, work on yourself, work on your game, then you can play anywhere, including the NBA. And I want to say this, that my mother used to always tell me, say, you're not better than anybody, but it's nobody better than you. And I took that everywhere I participated. And just to be able to play in the NBA, to win a world champion, to play with the Elvin Hayes, the Bob Dandridge, the Mitch Kupchaks of the world, I mean, that's something special, and that's something I remember until I leave here.
Now I'm going to take you back to a moment in your career. I'm going to take you back down the memory lane. Your first game as a rookie, November the 5th, 1976. This is where everybody said Mr. Larry Wright belonged. You came off the bench your first time in the Boston Garden.
Yes, sir.
And the Celtics were coming off a world championship that same season. You're going up against JoJo White, Dave Cowens, but you came off the bench. Your first game in Boston, you're a rookie, and you had 23 points. And you went 6 for 6 from the foul line in the fourth quarter. Tell us about the feeling after that first game. Your first game ever in the NBA.
It was really something special. A great friend of mine, Hall of Famer, Dave Beans, twisted his ankle. And when he twisted his ankle, Dick Motta, who's the coach of the Bullets, called me and he said, Larry, let's go. And you look at all the world champion banners in Boston Garden. You look at the great JoJo White, Charlie Scott, and all those guys that you had idolized. But I didn't come there to idolize those guys that night. I didn't know I was going to play as much as I did that night, being the first game of my rookie year. But when they called my name, I was ready to go. And the thing that I remember about Boston Garden, the great Bill Russell, who was from West Monroe, Louisiana, played for the Boston Celtics. So we always watched Bill. He was always a hero of ours. And here I am, little Larry Wright from Little Richwood High School, Monroe, Louisiana, having a chance to step on the court in Boston Garden and compete against some of the finest basketball players that ever lived. But I always remember my mother say, Larry, do your best. And that's what I did. That night, I played extremely well and had a good ball game, and we was able to beat the defending champions. And guess what? That time was back-to-back. We played them the next night in Washington, D.C., and we did the same thing.
Yes, sir. Now I'm going to move to 1978. That's a special year for me, Mr. Wright, because I graduated from high school that year in May. And I'm going to go before y'all had that great series with the Seattle Supersonics. But I remember y'all were down 3-1 to the San Antonio Spurs.
Yes.
And I remember your coach, Dick Motta, said this: the fat lady haven't sung yet.
Yes.
And I remember that San Antonio team that had the Iceman, George Gervin, and a young man that went to the University of Memphis by the name Memphis State, Larry Keenan.
Right.
And y'all came down from 3-1 to win that series. Also, San Antonio had George Karl. And then moving on, I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Wright. Now, I had got my high school graduation money, right?
Right.
Which was about $100. And I loved the Supersonics back then because they had the backcourt of Slick Watts, downtown Freddie Brown. They had Dennis Johnson, who was a rookie at the time from Pepperdine, and Lonnie Shelton. I'm going to be honest with you. I went with them and lost all their graduation money. But I was very impressed of your team and y'all winning that year, you had Wes Unseld, Greg Ballard, Kevin Greavy, the Big E, Alvin Hayes, another Louisiana. Talk about that time, first of y'all being down 3-1 to San Antonio, and then y'all coming back winning the ring against the Seattle Supersonics.
Well, we were down 3-1 to San Antonio, and like you say, they had the Iceman, they had Larry Keenan, and they had James Silas. All of these guys were all pro in the ABA, and when they came to the NBA, were great players. Iceman, one of the greatest scorers you ever seen in your life. But we were down 3-1, and we knew that we were a better ball club than that. And we all was disappointed in ourselves. And we had a team meeting, and everyone had a chance to say what they needed to say. And everyone agreed that we were better. And then the coach spoke, Dick Martyr spoke, and he said, the opera ain't over till the fat lady sang. And the great Bobby Dandridge, and just say, hey, and great Wes Unseld, said, we're gonna leave it on the court. To a man, everybody have to leave it on the court. He said, but we're gonna take one player at a time, one game at a time, and that's what we did. And we were able to force it to 7, and we forced it to 7 in Washington, D.C. And we were able to beat the Spurs and move on to the championship round.
And then when I said the great series with the Seattle Supersonics, man, that was one for ages. But with all your accomplishments that you've had on the court and all the great mentors, you know what I really respect about you, Mr. Larry Wright, Coach Wright, is you, after you retired and you had a great career over in Italy, your ability to come back to your home area and really be an inspiration to these young people. And just talk about how you was assistant principal at Rainville High School.
Yes.
And then just your desire, and what I read about you, your desire about our young people. Talk about how that's really been an inspiration in your life. And what can you tell aspiring, let's say, a young basketball player, whether it's female or male, whether in middle school or high school, what advice can you give to them in the directions right now here on 100 Yards of Football?
Well, the word student athlete always meant something to me and my teammates at Grambling State University, because the great Eddie Robinson, he used the word damn it a lot. He said, damn it, you're a student athlete. We expect you to come to Grambling and graduate from Grambling. Say, you may not be able to play professional basketball. He said, but if you graduate from Grambling, you can go out and make a living for your family when you're done playing. So that always stuck in my mind. And I can remember when I became an assistant principal at Rayville High School. See, that's where Herschel West went to high school. That's where Elvin Hayes and Robert Piper went to high school. So when I got to Rayville as an assistant principal, I didn't see anything about the great Elvin Hayes, one of the 50 greatest players to ever play basketball. So what I did, I went to the mayor, who was the teammate of Elvin Hayes. I said, man, this doesn't sit right with me. I said, Elvin Hayes, one of the greatest players ever played, and he played at this school. And you don't have anything in this building about Elvin Hayes. And we got together and we had a welcome home Elvin Hayes Day. And that's one of the things that the kids didn't even know. You got a guy this great, and these kids at this school don't know that this guy went to school here at Rayville High School. And going back a little bit, school teachers, Herschel West, Robert Piper, Maggie Freeze, all these people were my hero and my idol. As I said, my father wasn't in my life for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. But these men and my mother, you know, I give her all the credit in the world because she gave these men the authority to deal with me any type way they had to make me do the right thing, okay? And their message to me was, don't let basketball use you. Take advantage of basketball so basketball can pay your way through college. I never understood that back then. I didn't know you could even get a scholarship and go to college free because you could shoot the basketball, play basketball. So that was something that stuck with me once I found out that, hey, this basketball can pay my way to college. Hey, I got serious with everything. I'm talking about my education, the athletic part of it, and to these young people who don't understand how important it is as an athlete to be a student athlete. See, because everybody is not going to be LeBron James. Everybody is not going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Everybody's not going to be Elvin Hayes or Dr. J. So you're going to need something if you don't reach that level to fall back on. And that stayed with me. Hey, I was drafted after my junior year in the first round. But as soon as the season was over and the draft was over, I was back in school finishing my degree because I never wanted to say that I didn't do what my mother asked me to do, or I didn't do what these coaches asked me to do. It's an opportunity for all young men and women to go to college and get a degree and be successful in life. When somebody tells you you can, you say you can because it's there for you. When I came out of school, it was kind of difficult, but now you can stay at home and go to school on the computer. It doesn't get any easier than that. So really, it's not any reason for a young man or a young lady not to graduate from college now.
Mr. Wright, we can talk to you all day. You got some great stories. Back then, basketball, people don't realize, was at a very high level. The game was different then. But like I say, today it's been a tremendous honor, a tremendous blessing to have you here on 100 Yards Football. We like to say this to you. What is your final word today on 100 Yards of Football? And another thing I would like for you to come in, if you had to tell one person, a person that has aspirations of playing on the next level, what would it be? Your final words here today on 100 Yards Football, Mr. Larry Wright.
I'd like to say to all the young people in America, never use excuse for anything. As Afro-Americans, we know everything hasn't been fair, but think about what your people went through, your mother, your father, your grandfather, everybody went through for us to have this opportunity now. So if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then you're letting them down. They paid the price. They suffered for us. But they did it, and they did it for us. Now, it's no such thing as I can't do it. If you think about what they had to go through, that's enough in itself. And the great Eddie Robinson used to say, don't make excuses. He said, excuses are for losers. He said, if they knock you down, he said, get up. If they knock you down again, get up. He said, and this was very important, he said, don't sit around feeling sorry for yourself, saying that, he's smarter than me. No, he ain't no smarter than you. He say he might learn faster than you, and it may take you a little longer to learn it. He say, but at the end of the day, you both got it. So, man, I really appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to speak to you all, and I just wish every youngster in America good luck, and that when they finish school, always look back at the people before them. All the greats that went before you are the reason you are where you are today.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I like to say today it's been a blessing to have the legend himself, basketball legend, Mr. Larry Wright, out of Grambling State University. I want to give special thanks to our producer today, Mr. Logan Landers, to the team at 100 Yards of Football, my man out of Brooklyn, New York, Mr. Ronnie Keeper, the young man, Atlanta Falcons great, Florida State, Mr. Bobby Butler, to Mr. Jeremiah Long, thank you, to the guy who did the great introduction today, Mr. Mark Denham, and most of all, a special thanks and appreciation to Mr. Jim Maryland. Thank you so much. The people here at 100 Yards Football. My final words today about Mr. Larry Wright. He came out of Grambling State. He made it to the NBA. Like the great George Benson, he was on Broadway, neon lights. I'd like to say thank you here on 100 Yards of Football, and y'all be blessed. God bless.